Hey there, it's Lisa Vino, and I'm here with Alessandra Torre and also writing as AR Torre. I'm really excited because I was reading your books back
Mhm.
in the day
Back
when I
in the
first
day. Yeah.
first got an e-reader, and you co-founded InkersCon, which
Mhm.
I just was at, and I was at last year because my friend was speaking. And it is the most warm, friendly, lovely author event I have ever been to, possibly ever, like any conference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
That's
just,
huge. Yeah.
I think I do love to vibe with writers
Mhm.
anywhere on their journey. And I just love how welcoming it was to all writers, all authors, wherever you are on your journey. Come, we're in this together, that feeling.
Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite things about author events, and we were chatting about this, before there's a different, reader events, authors event. You think they're all the same, but it is a totally different vibe and it's a different focus. And I love just like the synergy that's there and I love multi-genre author events. So when we started Inkers Con, um, the money would have been in is more in niche conferences, right? So like because a lot of times an author's like, I can only afford to go to one conference this year. So instead of going to like a multi-genre, they'll often go to like cozy mystery, one on 101 or whatever, like their specific niches. But I used to go to a lot of romance authors and conferences, and I like learning from non-romance. Now I write suspense. AR Tori is suspense, but I like learning like what like the people killing it in like sci-fi are doing, because maybe there's something there that I can borrow, and use in our genre where no one else is doing that. So I really like multi-genre, but every conference has a different vibe and different feel, and yeah, that's what makes them all great.
Yeah, I love this one. And when I look back on my career, because I did a talk at Inkers on my journey, and it was like the path to a
This
million
was
book
really
sales.
great, I have to say.
Thank you.
Really was.
And I, it was hard to fit everything in. I did not fit all the things I did into a 45-minute
Cover
talk.
your entire career in 45 minutes. Yeah.
It was a very overview, and if you're listening to this and you either were there live or you can get the virtual conference, and I'll get you the
Yeah.
links to that. I would love to see you in there because I'm doing some extra stuff on co-writing and stuff, which is another thing I didn't get to. But when I looked at that talk, I realized I left a huge component out there. I maybe touched on it, but I am so well networked.
Yeah.
I know so many awesome authors, and a lot of them are in romance, like my posse, of course,
Yeah.
because I learned from them. I watched them learn how to make money, learn how to hit the top 100 in Kindle Unlimited, learn how to do a direct store when we went wide. I've co-written with them, but also like as you said, outside of romance, just really interesting people like Nick Eriks, who's really smart about ads and cover testing and all that, and Russell Nolte now, who knows all these comic artists because he does comics. And I'm like, why aren't there more erotic romance
Yeah.
comics? And we're just gonna talk
Yeah.
about
It's
that. And
like
like,
we're sleeping on that, man. Yeah.
I know. And like you said, sometimes I read actually business books a lot of times, or marketing books or startup culture books, and see what they're doing, or courses and stuff. And then we we can borrow a lot of that, and we have into romance or whatever, the writing, your writing career. But I really realized so much of my career has been shaped by the people I know.
Mhm.
And I know if you're listening to this and you're like, well, how do I meet people? Going to a live event is really powerful, or show up to the online conference and get in that Facebook group.
Yeah. And what's special about Anchors Con is so we've been doing the digital conference since 2019. So we were doing digital conferences before COVID, and COVID brought a bunch of other conferences because they had to, like they then became digital conferences. But from the very beginning, the digital conference was really our focus, and the live conference was just a way for us to record the digital content professionally. That was really it. It was like, initially we were just going to bring the speakers in and record without anyone else. Like, it was just like, oh, let's just fly all the speakers here and record. And then it was like, well, we might as well bring other authors. Like, I mean, this is silly. Like, cause then we were like feeding them, and then it was like, okay, we got food, we got parties, we have a conference here.
Yes.
But what is unique about, because I've attended a lot of summits, I've attended a lot of online conferences, and there's really not that community and that vibe. Like, there's not that synergy, because it is, but Inkers is different, and it's mainly different because of the roundtables. So the roundtables, and I believe you are going to be doing a roundtable with Golden
Yes.
Angel. Hopefully that wasn't a surprise that I just.
No, I'm so
But
excited.
but the roundtables were started our first year, and that attendees lead, and their Zoom chats with anywhere from like 5 to 300 people on a certain topic. And sometimes they're like teaching roundtables, which is, I think, what y'all are going to be doing. But a lot of times it's just like, hey, I want to meet other cozy mystery authors, or it's like, Australian authors that want to sprint together. Like, someone will create a roundtable for that, and then they all meet each other and figure out a time, or it's just like people like writers with ADHD and who want like tips. And our most successful was one called Ask the Guys. And they and 4 guys did it. And I got a text at like 10:45 at night, and someone's like, are you in the Ask the Guys attendee group or roundtable? And I'm like, no, but like, that roundtable ended like a while ago, because it had started at like 8:30. They're like, no, it's still going on. And it lasted 3.5 hours. And what it was 4 guys came on. They were like, ask us anything, like anything. And so when they were like, you've got to get on, when I popped in, they were in the middle of, I don't know, like the rating level of this podcast, but they were in the middle of describing, they were each going around and describing what an orgasm feels like to them, like what they were physically describing it, like, it with words, so that these authors, and all the authors are like, great.
Yeah. No, that's
Like,
really good.
what does that sensation feel like? Like, how would I verbalize like what that sensation feels like? But they were, it wasn't just about sex, it was the perfect group, because these guys were so respectful, and they were speaking about it almost clinically, but it was the most entertaining. And anyways, it lasted 3.5 hours. We had like 320 women on there, and men. I mean, there was, it was an interesting group, but they ended up launching a podcast after that called Ask the Guys, and they came back, like they come almost every year. I don't know if they're going to be there this year. But it was just like, but that, because of the roundtables, you really do actually meet other authors and get to, engage and have conversations and kind of capture that same experience, because it is really hard if you live somewhere, or that doesn't have conferences, or you don't have the budget or the schedule where you can travel to an author event. Nowadays, especially like our first year, like, authors were like, there were authors that didn't have Zoom accounts, and
Yeah.
they, I mean, and then COVID changed all of that, so now everybody and their mother literally has a Zoom account. But it's just come a long way, and it's really, a really cool environment.
It is such a cool environment. And that's why I speak to the atmosphere, because I have been in Facebook groups that are for authors, but there's like some misogyny there. So it's good to hear about those 4 guys who are like positive and tell
They
us.
were the best. Yeah, because it could have very easily gone creepy.
Yeah,
could
but
have
no, it was
been
great.
weird. It could have been them like mansplaining stuff. And they were just like, yeah,
Respectful.
they were so great. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then I got to have lunch or just get margaritas or whatever with all sorts of authors. And there were some new ones there. There were some who were working on their first book, who were picking out a pen name, and we were cracking up about like, how would you pick a crazy pen name? That was really fun. And everyone was very encouraging. And then wherever you are at any level, I think I do get revived by being around authors, because I've been through periods of burnout. And what you said about virtual is great, because I started my Facebook group, Millionaire Author Mastermind, because I was in a writing group and I'd started to make money and kind of share what I was doing. And that they didn't feel very responsive to that. So I was like, great, well, I'll just set up a group and I'll talk about money and being an author in here. If you're in here, we're going to talk about that. If you don't want to hear about it, don't join the group.
Yeah.
But I also was having babies. So
Uh-huh.
physically going to a conference really wasn't.
In the cards, yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like everyone goes through different periods in their life where you're not leaving your house. It's
Yeah.
totally fine. The world went through that in 2020, but I love, vibing with other authors. So at every level, even in periods of burnout, when I get around other authors, it fills
It's
my
like a
well.
shot, yeah, of
Yeah,
adrenaline, yeah.
because it can
Especially
be
like
so
you said,
solitary.
I wouldn't wanna, like, only hang out with aspiring authors because, you do need to learn from, your peers and it's nice to know kinda where everyone is at in different things. But I do love the mix because I'm working with I'm, like, mentoring a new author now, and, like, he got 2 sales last month, and he is so excited about his 2 sales, and it was just that reminder of, like, I remember with my first book, like, it's so easy to forget, but I remember with that first book, like, when I had, like, 3 sales in a day, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, someone out there right now has my book and they're reading it." Like, "Oh my god," you know? And what it was like to get that first review and to check your reviews and like be both terrified and excited to read like what people think. And you forget, like we get jaded, and we get um it's just great. It's great to see the energy and just kind of remember like what it was like going through that, the good and the bad.
Yeah. And then let's talk about some of the speakers that are going to be in this virtual con because it definitely is a high level conference. Like there is advice that you can apply at every level. In fact, that's why I kind of tailored my talk to go, there's a lot you can do, but I just want you to know you can do it even if you do one thing today
Yeah.
to be encouraging. But what else is on the slate for the
Yeah,
schedule?
so Inkers Con, we always have like four main pillars or categories. So one is craft, one is business, one is advertising, and one is marketing. And so the goal is really each year we try to bring in at least 90% new speakers, different speakers from the year before. Sometimes we have repeats, but they normally skip a year. So we're trying to continually bring in new voices and kind of vary the experience. Like a couple years ago, the attendees were like, these are great. These are all authors. A lot of these speakers like hit or have been in this industry for like 10 years. And so we want someone who kind of just came in the last year or two and is killing it. So that was great feedback. And I totally agree. So it's nice to have kind of a mix and to see. And so this year we have so many fantastic speakers like yourself. And it was funny because I don't know if you remember this, but last year at Inkers Con, I was in a conversation with someone. I'm always like, who have you seen at conferences? Like, who would be a good speaker? Who have you seen on podcasts or whatever? And someone's like, you have to talk to Lee. And I wrote down your name, like on a piece of paper. I was like, oh my God, like she sold you like hard. And so I wrote down your name. And then like 15 minutes later, she came to me. She's like, oh my God, Lee is here. And I was like, what? And so then I ran into you in the hall. Like it was like that hour was like karma. Like it was funny because then I
Yeah.
ran into you in the hall, like before I'd even, then I just ran into you. I was like, oh my God, I just like twice in the last hour I've heard your name. So anyways, so we have a fantastic lineup and everybody from like Gianna Darling,
Yes.
so who spoke on world building, and she was just fantastic. One thing we really focus on is like actionable information. Like if you can share, like you talked about like talking about money, like we want to hear about money. Like because
Yeah.
someone saying like, oh, my sales went up, 300% if they only had 15
Like
sales,
presale.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like doesn't like if any screenshots you can share, any real life data, like and results, good or bad, like we want to know about. But I loved her. I've been wanting to get Pierre Gentil, who is a 7-figure direct sales author. He's in poetry, which normally Anchors Con is 100% focused on fiction. But it was like, man, if he's doing this in poetry, like there's a world of opportunity, for fiction authors that have,
Yes.
a big platform. And he's just a fantastic businessman. Like I talked to him at lunch one day, and I mean, he's just wicked smart, and you know, and organized, and doing everything. But I also love, if you're, you know, Steph Green, who writes under Stephanie Holmes. She has a class on her skeleton draft. She also spoke on our like all-star panel. And that was just such a really interesting story. So I loved everything. We had Angel Lawson doing a joint presentation on super fans. And again, it was just seeing what everyone else is doing, and how they're doing it is so interesting, because like Melissa Miller spoke on the things she did that worked and the things she did that didn't work. And it kind of resonated me the same with Becca Syme, who was another speaker this year. And if you've never heard Becca speak, she brought like her whole fan club, like she had her own like group that I think came to the conference just to see her. But something just I heard about like in multiple places this year was that like something that works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for you, you know, and it depends on your books. It depends on your audience. It depends on, you know, your personal style, especially when it comes to writing and processes and that sort of thing. But it was interesting to hear like what Melissa had tried that didn't work, but it was kind of that her talk was very much on like how far to go down a path before you pivot, and how important it is to try different things, but also abandon those things that aren't working. You know, and just because you maybe go to the work to launch a direct store or something like that, like there's a time where you have to say, okay, like I tried this, let me focus my attention in other places, and see what works. So and Facebook ads, Matt Holmes, I don't know if you sat in on that presentation, but he has like kind of a different way of doing ads. And I was talking to Pierre about it. Pierre was, John T was the Shopify. And he's like, Matt's the only one I know who's doing ads like this, which is the same way Pierre does ads. And he's like, and it's like, Matt says, you know, you can spend 5 minutes a day on ads when you do them his way. It's a very hands-off, like let Facebook work for you. And that was the first thing I did when I got home, was set up campaigns with that new process.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to take the virtual con because there were things I missed because I was in the other presentation.
Yeah.
And or I missed the one on email marketing because I was speaking and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, I'm redoing all my autoresponders this year. I need this talk and give me the
And
rundown.
I heard a lot of people rave about that presentation. As far as like, that's what one person said, as far as like actionable information,
Yeah.
that they were like, this is all I needed. Like, I don't have to go to anymore.
Yes.
Or presentation.
Yeah. I think that the mark of a good talk is something that you're like, okay, I'm so excited now to go and do something, like go and apply something. And maybe that's my high achiever. I don't know, which is a strengths finder.
Yeah.
That Becca Syme taught me. But yeah, I love it because I do think there was a mix of tactics and a good mix of mindset and encouraging people to do their own path, because we have so much opportunity. And I told someone the other day, so many things in my business right now are I could say yes to. I need it to be a hell yes.
Yes.
Because
you have so much like your own resources in terms of time and energy. Like, I don't know if you Danielle Romero talked. I don't know, I should know. I think she talked about like the 3 R's of author revolution or something. All I remember was like the CEO talk. Like that's how I think of it in my mind, because like there's some presentations that are like great information. Hers was great information, but hers also was like the shot in the arm I needed. Yeah, like is this something you want? Like, is this serious? Like put in the work and do it. Like, you know, like don't make excuses, you know, like this is, you know, if what you want is success, then you need to take it. And I just needed that. I needed that. Like that was kind of my like kick in the butt.
And then I sat in on Sarah Cannon's talk because I was really tired. You know, I was like, okay, I'm getting to the end. I need to go lie in a dark room, my little decompression chamber after this. But Sarah Cannon's was all like, you don't have to do everything. You get to
Yeah.
decide and you get to choose what's important to you. And for me, that is like, is it a hell yes? Is my energy high when I think about doing it? And because we have so many options. So yeah, every talk you can definitely take something away from, but again, the talks between the talks is really where I built my business, because it's one thing to like write it down and have a checklist. It's another thing to meet someone at Monday at 9 a.m. for a word sprint, which is when I get words, or a work sprint, which is when I do ad creation and marketing and updating those autoresponders in my email. And either way, it's a nice little water cooler time because I'm not alone. And I think that making those connections, whether you're going to see someone once a year at the conference, live or virtually, or create relationships where you're co-writing like I do with Golden Angel. And that's what the power of conferences are. And I'm so glad you do have a virtual option, because when I was pregnant, I was like looking for the virtual options.
The also good thing about conferences is it exposes you to like brands that you're not familiar with, or companies. Like Lulu Press was something I really didn't know much about until Inkers Con. Book Vault. I met with Amazon Ads when I was there, and it was like that 2 minutes that I needed where I was just like, hey, like this ad that I see, is that something that I have to spend like 30 grand a month to get? Or is that something that like anybody with a $14 ad budget can get, and she was like, anybody with a $14 ad budget. I was like, great,
There you
and
go.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. And then she was like, let me get you added to the beta. I was like, fantastic. And that,
Nice.
so like, I couldn't, I mean, I would have, it would have been like, a jungle gym trying to get through that. So it's nice to have, I loved meeting like the Book Vault guys,
Yeah.
seeing what they had. And I'm traditionally published. And so I'm like, oh, I can't do like these. I am self-published, but my
Yeah.
current latest releases are traditionally published. And I was like, oh, I can't do these like special editions, And it was like this water cooler conversation. Someone's like, why don't you just do like a series like box jacket, like, so you can slide like your traditionally published books in there, like it with their covers, but you could make like a really cool box for them to go in. I was like, done,
Yeah.
so, and I went and talked to them. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, this is great. Like, so, and again, like you said, it's those moments that you find
Yeah.
that
With
you
the
don't
with the
expect, that you
vendors.
can't plan. Right.
Yeah, because I've been to conferences, and the way I got special marketing was meeting with Apple, meeting with,
Yeah.
like you said, Amazon, talking to Book Vault, and being like, well, how do I set up this account to get, because they'll do sprayed edges, they'll do foiling, and readers are really wanting those special
Now
editions.
that you're right. Yeah, that's what's hot right now. And
And it's
there's
hitting a
money
whole new,
on it.
yeah, it's a whole new market.
Yeah.
If you think about it. And actually, I like it because the more we look at direct sales, the more you almost want to think like an e-commerce person, because you are, or a
Yeah.
drop shipper, because you are. And Pierre, we sat down with, and he looked over our store and gave us feedback. We were able to meet with him one-on-one because we're all there. And we have gotten special, like I said, promotions. We've gotten on Kobo's podcast because we met one-on-one with them.
Mhm.
And that is something I wasn't able to do until I went to conferences, until the babies grew up and I could go, until I could leave the house. So yay. Well, I will have the links to Inkers Con that gives everyone a little discount. So if you're listening to
Yeah,
this,
and
you haven't signed up.
just a quick. So the way the digital conference works is we had the live conference, which Lee and I are talking about. We recorded everything with a team of videographers. So those presentations right now are being edited and packaged and adding transcripts and closed captioning. And so then July 20th, anytime between now and July 20th, or even like the first 2 weeks after that, that's when the live conference launches. And so we'll have 2 weeks of packed. That's when we'll do the digital roundtables. We'll have Q&As with best-selling authors. We'll have office hours with retailers and different companies. And all of that is in that 2-week window. And most of that is recorded. So if you're doing something June 20th to August 4th or whatever it is, that's okay. You know, you can come back and watch the recordings. But if what you're craving is like interaction and meeting other authors and finding kind of small niches that you can befriend or, you know, make connections in, that's what you want. And we have a payment plan available. Lee has a coupon that will get you a discount. And but ideally you jump in, like book between now and the 20th so you can be there for all that. And then, but so that's 2 weeks, but then you'll have access for 6 years to that content. So it does not expire, unlike some other conferences where you have like a month to watch it. You have 6 years. So if you're not ready for the Facebook ads video right now, but in a year you are, it'll be there.
That's beautiful, especially the craft ones I like to go back and listen to.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
evergreen world building.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be like, oh, I'm struggling with, like, there's one on tropes this year. Tropes is something I still only have kind of a fuzzy understanding of. Like, as soon as I think I understand it, I don't. Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
a good.
Yeah, no, that it's always fun to think of that, and that fills my well too. So, any last advice you have, someone who has been, you know, on a very interesting and unique, which we all have a unique path, but you know, you've done the indie, you've done the trad, you have 2 pen names, you now run a conference. What would be your advice to someone just getting started?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Well, one thing I think that Pierre said at the conference, which resonated with me, was that there's really kind of 3 paths in this industry, right? There's like, you're writing for fun, you are wanting to enrich your life with, you know, and become an author and join the community and, you know, create stories that readers will love. But, and it is just like your passion, you know, side piece, you know, and that is a fantastic path to be on. It is one that does not require you to be financially successful, which means that it does not put pressure on your books. It does not cause you heartache and agony if, you know, one book doesn't become a, you know, a bestseller. And it is a wonderful, fantastic path that very few authors seem to pick. But it is there, and there's nothing wrong with that path. And that is a path that would allow you to skip all the marketing classes and the advertising classes and all of that. And really just have fun writing stories that you love. Then there's the path of like, I love this, I want this, and I want to make money at it, you know, and I need to make money at it. Because, you know, I need supplemental income, or I want to quit this job that I hate and do this full time. So that is a different path. And then the third path is like, this is going to be my career. You know what I mean? I have a 3-year plan or 4-year plan to quit my job, or, you know, or I just lost my job and this is my new career and it's, you know, it has to work. And you're going to make different decisions based on that path. But knowing kind of that path and identifying it for you, it doesn't mean that you can't change that path in the future, but
Right.
kind of knowing it immediately allows you to kind of like make your to-do list or make like your priorities much easier to understand, because you're going to pick different priorities based on that. And it's really easy in our business to try to do all of the things, and that no one is doing all of the things. If you are seeing an author that is doing all of the things, then they have a team. You
Yes.
know, so, and that team is all often invisible, which makes us all feel like failures if we're not doing all of the things and publishing 8 books a year, you know, like they are. So, so it's, you want to do whatever you can to prevent burnout and to increase your enjoyment. And remember why we're here, which is, for the most part, for most of us, it's because we love books, you know, and we love telling stories and we love to write. And so if there's a way we can do that and make money at it, great, you know, but don't be in this hurry to like quit. I've to quit your day job and become a writer, because it puts a lot of pressure on your books and on you as a person. But that my really best piece of advice, all that said, is that figure out as early as you can in your career what you as a brand are going to be like, and what type of books you're going to write. Because if you are like me and like so many authors who just wrote like whatever we felt like writing, that was all great, but it meant like that I was writing a chick lit book and then like a dark romance, you know, with a slave, and then, you know, like a slow burn romance all in the same year, literally. And my audience was like, I like Alessandra's writing, but I don't know what she's going to come out with next. Every book I was trying to like convince them that this is the book that they want. And this is, you know, and I was having all these like sub audiences that didn't like the other type of books. So if you can, and it might take you a couple books to figure out what you want to spend the rest of your life writing, you know, but the earlier you can identify a book that you enjoy writing and that your audience enjoys, and then you can stay in that path or in that lane, as we like to say, the better, because you will then be building your audience with every single book you write versus potentially alienating your audience or having to find a new audience with every book you write. And write in series. Okay. That's my
Yes. Thank you for encapsulating your career
yes
into 30 seconds.
Done for the year. Yeah. So.
And everyone, we will see you inside the virtual conference. I cannot wait.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you all there.
Bye, guys.